Listen, you know, when I counsel nutritionally my patients, I'll often start with four big dietary myths, and I'll say dietary myth number one is that eating fat makes us fat. That's false. Eating fat, and that includes saturated fat, doesn't make us fat so long as we're not over-consuming, and we heard this before, carbohydrates along with that fat. Dietary myth number two, that the consumption of cholesterol-containing food and saturated fat causes heart disease. Well, I'm here to tell you this, and these are biochemical facts, that not only does the consumption of cholesterol and saturated fat not increase your risk for heart disease, it lowers your risk for heart disease, type 2 diabetes, obesity, many types of cancers, and GERD. Don't believe me? There's a book you may have heard of, out there. It's Good Calories, Bad Calories by Gary Tops. All right, phenomenal book. Dietary myth number three, I got a lot of heat on. Maybe some of you guys will get the pun. It's about calories. And I'll say that the calorie is irrelevant in human nutrition. All right? Or actually, the myth is that the calorie is relevant in human nutrition. And I'll say false. Calories are irrelevant. Man, I get a lot of slack on that one. We all know that calories in are calories out. You should lose weight. Really? Well, I haven't seen that in clinical practice. In fact, what I have seen is if I have a morbidly obese patient, that sometimes they have to double or triple their caloric intake before they start to lose weight effectively. Okay? So if calories in, and a lot of these individuals, I don't promote, and by the way, dietary myth number four, that we need to exercise in order to lose weight is false. I'm not advocating not exercising. That's not my point. My point is that if you have a morbidly obese individual, it is pure negligence to say, get out there and jog. Hips, knees, ankles, heart. These are the things we need to worry about. How about we take some weight off first, maybe 50, 75, 100 pounds, then I'll let you exercise. So 4 big dietary myths. Eating fat does not make us fat. Well, actually, eating fat is safe. You know, eating fat makes us fat. Wrong. Eating fat and cholesterol increases heart disease. Wrong. Calorie is relevant in human nutrition. Wrong. And you don't need to exercise in order to take off significant amounts of weight. Back to me a little bit. When I took the 70 pounds off that I mentioned before, I did not increase my exercise amount throughout the week, but yet I took the weight off. You know, this is fascinating. The whole lipid panel, you know, we're looking at high cholesterols. The buzzword is, I got to lower my total cholesterol, Well, the problem is this. Total cholesterol and your typical lipid panel, I'm not talking about the VAP panel, if you know what that is, but your typical lipid panel, the total cholesterol and your LDL are irrelevant. But these are the numbers that your national cholesterol education programs look at to guide us physicians into, you know, starting statins. So if your total cholesterol is above 200, that's bad. Really? Well, total cholesterol is a function of all the carrier molecules of cholesterol. HDL, LDL, and VLDL are all carrier molecules of cholesterol. If your HDL or good cholesterol is elevated, it's going to drive up your total. It has to. It's simple, basic mathematics. I can't tell you how many times a day I'll get reports from cardiologists, nephrologists, endocrinologists, low fat, low cholesterol, low sodium. You know, it's difficult. I see that every day. And that's not what we need to do. We need to encourage the consumption of more saturated fat. We need to encourage the consumption of more cholesterol. We need to tell people to back off on their carbs. And we're not doing that. And not that I'm going to pick on fruit, but I want to just point out the fact that the sugar in fruit is, of course, fructose. And I want to point out the biochemical fact that glucose and fructose are the starting points for the a synthesis of the cholesterol and the fat molecule. Starts with glucose, starts with fructose. Biochemical fact. Okay? So the more glucose one consumes in its many shapes and forms, I'll counsel my patients and I'll say, carbohydrates are oftentimes wolves in sheep's clothing. Be careful with them. For I do not promote the overconsumption of whole grains and multigrains and 7 grains and whole wheat pasta and brown rice. And I'll tell them to back off on the fruit as well. For fruit contains within it fructose. So you need to be watching the intake of those things that we worship, that we adore, and eat more of the very things that we steer away from. Very quickly, I read a wonderful book. I think you might know this individual, Dr. Mary Enoch, Know Your Fats. And I have to stress this because I was ignorant for a very long time. If you said saturated fat to me, if you said meat fat, beef, I'd be like, oh, that's all saturated fat. You got to stay away from that. And now I know from Dr. Enoch that the fat in beef is 55% unsaturated. Let's move over to lard. That's like a four-letter word, right? Lard. You can't say that. Right? The fat in lard is, let me get this right, 60% unsaturated. Let's move over to fowl, chicken and turkey, right? That's fowl, right? Chicken and turkey. Right? You can't eat the skin on the chicken. You got to take the skin off. Bad for you. Going to hurt you and all that stuff. Let's see. The fat in chicken skin, 80% unsaturated, mostly unsaturated, mostly mono unsaturated. It's amazing. Let me end this, or at least my piece here, by saying the following. When patients ask me what to eat, it's actually quite simple. I'll give them the avoid list. You want to know what the avoid list is? Bread, pasta, rice, corn, carrots, potatoes, cereals, fruits, fruit juices, beets, cakes, and candies. Got that under 5 seconds, okay? And then I do this. I'm like, before I even say the meat list, I'll be like, are you a vegetarian? And if they say no, then I'll go on. And I'll say, you may eat the following: meat, red meat, lamb, pork, chicken with the skin, fish, eggs, including the yolk, cheeses, cold cuts, green leafy vegetables, butter is better, and mayonnaise is fine. Thank you.